All right, all right. Welcome back to All Cars Y'all. I am John. It is time for another Motorweek Retro Review reaction. This week I have chosen the 92 Nissan Maxima. I was down between about 3 different ones. I'll probably work the other 2 in the near future, but I've always loved the Maxima. Not every single generation. Some are stronger than others, but it always really appealed to me that it's a little more robust and powerful and sport-oriented than, say, the Accord or the Camry or, the Subaru Legacy or something like that. But for somebody who's adverse to payments and repair costs, it certainly made a more attractive proposition for me than, say, a BMW or Mercedes or an Audi. It seemed like that perfect middle ground right there. And so I've liked many of the generations, and I'm kind of excited about this one. So as always, grab your beverage of choice. We've got some disappointing decaf here today. Sit back in your comfy chair and let's take that little trip down memory lane all the way back to 92. If you feel the need, pop your collar.
Motorweek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com.
When Nissan introduced its redesigned Maxima sedan in 1989, it surprised a lot of people. Gone were the conservative lines and mushy handling. This once ordinary family sedan had become Japan's first true sports sedan, the standard by which those that followed it were judged. Since then, however, Maxima sales have fallen slightly due to the new competition. So Nissan has responded by adding more power and value to the Maxima package. Let's take a look. The SE-grade Maxima is the sportier of the 2 models available, so naturally that's where Nissan concentrated the performance improvements. Starting in the all-important power department, the SE now boasts a dual overhead cam version of its 3-liter V6 engine as standard equipment. The new motor makes 190 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque. Last year's single-cam 160 horsepower unit is still used in the more luxury-oriented Maxima GXE. 30 more horsepower.
Wow, they are blowing through this pretty quick. Let's talk about the engine real quick. I respect this engine. I respect it a lot. The 190 and 190 torque, that's pretty strong, honestly. And I think this is a very smooth engine, very respected engine to me. The luxury one having 160 horsepower, still not bad for the time. Styling-wise, I hope they go back to it. I may stop and talk about it some more. On the dull side, they want to be a sports sedan, which is kind of funny with front-wheel drive. That's been one of the criticisms. But what I loved about it was Nissan's marketing seized on it, and they came up with the 4-door sports car. I'm not sure that was much more than marketing speak. It was just a more powerful, generic sedan, but kind of boringly styled. I think they could have just been a little more expressive with it, because dead on the front, I mean, it looks like a Sentra. It looks vaguely like a Stanza. You squint and tilt your head a little bit, it could be a Legacy. I mean, it's not overly expressive. But I also think that's part of its attraction. I think that would turn people off. If you're like, hey, this is a value compared to this BMW, but it's boring, I get that argument. But if you're looking for something that's kind of quick, handles kind of well, and is comfortable, can do your daily duties like a daily driver, and give you a little zest in the process, flying under the radar is not a bad thing. One of my most fun cars was my old Volkswagen. It only had 81, I think, horsepower. It was square and boxy. I loved it. It used the space so well, and cops didn't notice me. So there might be something here to be said for this one being just a little on the duller side.
Horsepower has predictable effects, sending the Maxima's 0 to 60 time diving by a full second to 7.2 seconds. The quarter mile was also quicker, 15.7 seconds at 91 miles per hour. Despite a new viscous limited slip differential, our test drivers noted an increase in front drive torque steer. The 5-speed manual shifter in our car wasn't as smooth as previous Maximas, but the clutch was as crisp as ever.
That's really interesting. Improving the drivetrain, they detected more torque steer. I guess an increase in power. Nissan didn't engineer their way around it, but then the 5-speed being not as good. That I'm a little surprised. I really am. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that at all. Not that it's got worse. The fact that they detected torque steer, or the fact that they didn't say this 5-speed felt as silky as say a 3 Series, but to say it got worse, I'm a little shocked there. But there's nothing wrong with those numbers. Not earth-shattering, outrageous, oh my gosh, but I just did the 86 exotics, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Japla, and the Lotus Esprit. And granted, this is slower, by about a second, 0 to 60, and that quarter-mile trap time was a little bit slower for 6 or 8 more years of development. But this is a 6-cylinder front-wheel drive 4-door sedan that's also carrying you and another couple out to dinner. Nothing to be ashamed of here. I would love to see one of these up against a Taurus SHO. If they have one of those, I'll do it.
Even with a flat spot in the power band at 4,500 RPM, our test car's engine was much smoother than its predecessor. It also pulled harder at the top end. Last time that we tested a Maxima SE, we complained about the soft suspension feel. That hasn't changed despite some retuning by the factory. The substantial body roll and vague steering feel sometimes obscure the fact that the SE delivers true sports sedan grip. The SE's 4-wheel disc and optional ABS are also of true sporting caliber. Our car stopped from 60 in a smooth average of 109 feet. That's quite short for a 3,200-pound sedan. There's plenty of pedal feel and none of the harsh pulse that we associate with many ABS systems.
So interesting. Stopping. Let's talk about that first. Really strong. That's really, really good results. And what I've come around to saying on the channel is no drama. Dove pretty heavy, but no lockups, no squealing, no pulling or anything else. It just a controlled stop. Really fantastic. The slalom was a little disappointing, and for what's a sports sedan, that is disappointing. For a everyday driver that has sporting pretensions, maybe it's not that bad. I think a lot of the roll probably came from a softer suspension that's meant to be compliant, in day-to-day driving over potholes and on the interstate. Even though they said previous Maximas, not Ultimas, were soft and this is more sporty, it's not a 3 Series. That's what this boils down to. Little disappointing. Just slightly disappointing. And I'll tell you, the rear view here, especially when it was going through the slalom, screams Infiniti to me, which may not be a bad thing when Infiniti was launching and trying to take everything up market.
The 92 Maxima has received minor exterior changes to go with the mechanical refinements. A new, slightly busier grille design has been added up front, while the tail wears larger, smoother lights.
And I will say that although I said it was boring, I like the front end. It does. Nissan was not being out there. I mean, this was a few years, I think, before Renault had to come in and save them. But look at that at the front, and it's a Stanza. It's a Sentra. It's more than a family resemblance. They basically just took the same thing, the same design for the front, laid it on a copier, blew it up by 10%, and said, here's the front of our new Maxima. Again, I go back to a little uninspired, but very clean, very crisp, and very proportional. That's my overwhelming feeling looking at this car, is the headlights aren't too narrow or too big, right? It's not bug-eyed. All the lines are super crisp. And at the back, that full tail light, the reflectors across it, this car just looks good to me, if not earth-shattering, Italian, lustful. It just looks clean and crisp with just enough thickness and meat to not look overly generic. Struggling with how to word it.
Standard power side mirrors now have electric defrosters. The SE interior has a few additions too, such as new headrest adjustments, an electric trunk release, and an optional driver's side airbag. Otherwise, it's the same practical cockpit as before. The dash is as efficient as always, but even with revised graphics, the white analog gauges are just plain odd. The seats are still firm but well padded and supportive. Power seat controls for both driver and passenger are now part of the optional leather upholstery package. Rear seat room and luggage space remain quite sufficient for the average family. Price.
Whoa. I like the interior. The doors having that swoop of fabric or something with the plastic around it. It looks good. I'm glad they did something, but it does lacks a little elegance that makes this not upscale. I've never liked the white gauges. And I'm not sure why. They say it looks odd. I'm colorblind, so black on white should be perfect for me, and it's certainly better than the amber you get with some other manufacturers who won't be named. Crystal clear, but I don't really like them. A little too in your face, I guess. They didn't really talk about the rest of it, but it overall looks like a clean interior. I won't comment on the motorized seat belts because that was a snapshot in time that it was required if you didn't have passive restraints. I hate them, having the motorized belt and then a separate lap belt. I actually think that makes the car more dangerous. But that's not Nissan's fault. That is regulation's fault. They said the back seat was adequate. That was huge. You could have put a small child between that guy's knees and the front seat. And then the trunk, they didn't give a cubic footage. It was huge. It was very large. Very overwhelming opinion. While we're looking at it right here, a little boring silhouette, but a good use of space.
Wise, the Maxima SE now starts at $20,815. Our well-optioned test car comes to a still reasonable $24,035. That base price is only $2 more than that of a Ford Taurus SHO. The Maxima feels more refined, but the Taurus will still stomp it soundly in the performance department. While not quite the four-door sports car that its maker claims it to be, the Nissan Maxima SE is a very friendly, well-crafted sports sedan. One that can still teach those that came after it a thing or two about combining comfort and performance in a single, affordable package.
So I still like it. I mean, that's interesting. I come away from this review a little cool to the car from my memories of it, and it was built up a little bit more. And now I'm a little cooler to it, but I think it successfully found a niche in the market above your Accord and your Camry and your Subaru Legacy, or your not your Mitsubishi Diamante. That was much more luxurious than this. But above that, in the sporty realm, but below what BMW or even Audi maybe was doing, finding a value right there. The only real competitor I would put would be the Taurus SHO. Certainly things like the Lumina, I don't think really competed here. And between the Taurus and this, I'd take this all day long. While those Taurus SHO owners might be bragging about its acceleration, I think mine would last 15 years or more. So I really, really like it. And for those Accord and Camry owners who want a little bit more, this is the car, because you're not stretching up to the price of the BMW or the Mercedes or whatever, and the bills that are associated with it. Nissan really did a good job here, and this to me is one of the true Nissans. It was Nissan being Nissan, the company that created the 240 and the 280 and the 300 and the, everything else. This was real Nissan to me. And I love it for that reason. And the fact that it's a little generic works for me, because I feel like I'm flying under the radar a little bit. Is it as precise as a 3 Series? Of course not. It's not. And that's a little disappointing. You'd love to have that Japanese-ness, reliability, and manufacturing, and be able to stand toe-to-toe with the 3 Series. It doesn't. But a bigger package, more affordable, not much not to like here. If you're overly critical, it's a little boring to look at, doesn't handle quite as well, I think I'd overlook those. What I can't get over is the price. Now, I recently was looking, and not trying to compare apples to oranges here, but I can get right now an Accord LX base level for slightly less than $30,000. And this thing was 20. Their as tested was 24. It was just a few years ago that an Accord was 24. This strikes me as a little pricey. Now, a V6 Accord was not $24,000, $26,000, $27,000. I get that. And certainly we've had 30 years of inflation, but it's been 30 years. Strikes me as just a tiny bit pricey, honestly. I expected a sub 20, but that's just an opinion. Overall, I love the car. I really, really do. Little boring, little generic, but man, if you wanted to have a 4-door sedan and have just a little bit of something special in there, this was a great car to choose. Now, the Maxima kind of lost its way, and maybe I'll do some other ones, other versions, other generations along, but the last one, I've looked at it multiple times. I kind of like the styling, but I don't. And then it doesn't have this open and airy feel inside. It became more cockpitish. It became more of a grand tourer, and it became really, really expensive without any real benefit to its size and power and everything else. It ended up not finding a niche, and instead not being anything to anybody. Doesn't mean I still wouldn't like one, but every time I've looked at one, I find myself thinking, why wouldn't I just drive a Camry? Let me know what you think below, guys. Thanks for being here.